And we're here. We're here. So, normally I fill some, empty air at the start just in case people aren't subbed and they're showing up so that they don't have to deal with ads. So, that's what this entire sentence is for. It serves no purpose. Ay. But, it seems like people are showing up. They're very excited. So, let's start with some form of introduction, shall we? As always, I'm the host, Saruroku. I run the Big SQK Inc. or something. Across the table from me, we have a former guest and someone I look up to quite a lot, Sarah Raven Victoria.
Hello.
She will be my lovely co-host for the day. And, well, we got a real lovely guest over there as well, Sanus Sangria.
Hello, everyone.
So, that's our cast for the day. I believe I've updated the command, so if you type !squeak in chat, you can get a link to any of their stuff at the time you type it. And I should add that to the title. Oops. Small brain strikes again. Always forget one thing setting up for these, Always forget one thing. Oh, the other thing I forgot is, bringing up my list of questions. Oh, jeez.
Oh, no.
Ay. But I'm pretty aware of, what the usual first question is. However, I do have one thing to say. Normally, Sanus, you're 100 meters tall or 350 some odd feet tall?
I'm usually about 328, a little bit over 328 feet.
328. Alright, so you might notice that these are buildings with a lot of floors, right? Normally the guests wind up standing close to 500 feet on the low end, so you might be a little closer to your end height for your growth based on what you've said when you're around the interview set.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, a little bigger than usual. Let's see. Oh, I also forgot to do any audio balancing. My brain is full of squeak. So, to start us off, I may as well ask what people seem to refer to as the hardest question of all time whenever I ask it. So,
Oh, no.
Are you ready, Sanus?
I'm ready.
You're ready? Alright. Question number 1. Who is Sanus? Who are you?
That is a hard question. You're right.
Right?
Well, I am a demi-elf kaiju. To explain what a demi-elf is, imagine, I am an elf with animal-like traits. I have a tail. You can kind of see it wiggling around back there. I could turn around.
Yep, wiggly tail. Indeed.
Got a good amount of control on it, too. You didn't hit a single building when doing that. That was perfect.
I have learned.
You learn a lot when you're roaming around cities at that size, unfortunately, huh?
And trying your hardest not to destroy things.
Oh,
I come from another universe. In my universe, I'm actually only 5 feet tall. But when I come to Earth, for some reason, Earth really likes to emphasize the kaiju part of me. And it makes me the size of a kaiju.
Yeah, it sounded like there was a whole lot of potential reasons and speculation around that for you as well, huh? I think one theory I heard you bring up was worlds trying to install the natural order and our Earth doesn't have elves, so it does what? Biases the kaiju?
Yeah, it tries to replace the elf part with full kaiju part.
And that is one question that I do want to ask, because we've talked a little bit about some of your first interactions with people when you showed up, where some of the military and navy was like, oh no, kaiju, fire missiles and all that. But from your point of view, what was it like when you first showed up on Earth?
Well, I first came to Earth because I heard a distress call from my world even, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was at first. I followed it in through a portal that was under the ocean, and when I popped out of the water, I was surrounded by vehicles, tiny planes and helicopters and ships, all pointing lights at me, and they began to open fire. Didn't really have much thoughts before that.
Not really a warm welcome though. Huh?
Not exactly.
Well, fair enough. Oh,
Depends on how hot the explosions are.
you know, it might be a really warm welcome, huh?
Ah, yes.
Just get everything all heated up.
Yeah. It was shocking, to say the least.
Ah, so they tried tasers too. Probably not the most effective.
No.
Alright. And now that I've got everything set up, that's one thing I forgot to do. I forgot to mention that it's the 22nd interview. We're getting along pretty well, huh? Way too many of these things. So, we did start touching on it a little, and I know there is a lot of story that's going to be involved. So, I will speak a little bit to the audience as well for anybody who's shown up. I generally do accept questions from the audience as well, so keep that in mind, and if you have anything you want to ask Sanus, feel free to bring it up in chat and we'll relay it when we can. Otherwise, we'll be moving along with whatever questions are in the script and whatever questions my co-host and Sanus herself brought along. So, whenever we have openings, we'll field questions. For now, Sanus, there's some people who have very short answers to this question, but I imagine just based off of all the information you can give for just showing up to Earth the first time, what's your backstory, as it were? What happened before you showed up to Earth or started streaming?
Okay. Well, before I came to Earth, I live on a planet named Etif. It's Ehtif. There, it is a world filled with magic. Everything, living creature, nature itself is filled with some sort of magic. Again, I said earlier, my natural height is only 5 foot tall. I'm short, in lack of the better words. Our world is filled with creatures known as the cursed. They are monsters that, if anything in the world does not have magic, they do not have it. They are the opposite of magic, I guess you could say. And the people of my world who have a stronger affinity to magic, go to a guild known as Meridia. It's a big city. The whole guild is a big city. I actually grew up there. I was born in Meridia and I grew up there because my mother is known as the Archmage. There's only one in our world at a time. I guess a good way to compare it to something on your world is she's equivalent to the Avatar from Avatar. She's really strong with magic, all kinds of magic. I have a twin sister named Mandarin. We call her Manny. A younger sister named Animus, and a niece named Naoko. There's a lot of things happening in our world at all times. It's really hard to explain everything.
I can only imagine, and for a opening question, that's already a lot of an answer, huh? But it sounds like a whole lot of a world out there that you could explore before you wound up over on Earth. And it seems like you've got a few fans on Earth as well, like the one trying to climb up right now as well. You seem very...
That is another one of my friends, my Kaiju friends, Grim.
Ah.
So I usually, for certain people that redeem climb, I have actual PNGs of them I can put on. So for most people, it's going to look more like a silhouette, but for Grimm specifically, he does have one that will not be a silhouette. I'm going to put him right there.
And let's see if that shows up through the virtual camera. Oh, it does.
There we go.
So that actually works properly. Yeah, I have a similar redeem as well for people to sit atop my head, so it's certainly I didn't think of the idea of silhouettes personally, so I've been having a heck of a time being like, give me a PNG, please. Ah.
Considering
If
how
you would
expensive
like,
it is to travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ay.
If you would like, I could send you the PNG files of the silhouettes.
I actually think I found some generic silhouettes at some point.
Okay.
I just searched like Creative Commons and, snagged up a couple from there. But it's certainly fun to pivot slightly into streaming a little early. It's always fun when certain redeems get to play with size or get to have somebody join in directly like this, right? I know, at least on our side, where me and Sanus lean towards the, being giant side, so we have the redeem for people to hop atop our shoulders or our head. And I know, if you've seen any of my other streams with the embiggener and small system, I basically, I'll say stole the technology from Sarah over there when she showed it off and was like, hey, look at this, and I was just enamored. Because she has her own redeem that is something that she will glare people to death for half the time, and I am responsible for bringing in as a community joke. So the Tiny Sarah button.
You?
Yeah, me.
You would be the reason for that.
Yes.
You would be a big part of that.
Listen, I just wanted to shout Tiny Sarah every time you walked off onto your adventures with the old system. So, with that little preamble out of the way, are there any special redeems or interactivity you bring to your stream that you want to talk about?
Well, again, the climb one's probably my biggest redeemed stream thing. I recently added in a smooch redeem, but it is a little costly. I know that some people enjoy it, and I don't mind.
Oh no, danger. And I believe there's a few others, like you have a... No, it's not a compliment, it's something sweet or romantic, is it?
Yes, you redeem it, and I will try to think of something or find something to say romantically or sweet to you. When you redeem it, you would pick either romantic or sweet.
That certainly makes sense, and I imagine that one is fairly popular as well, I say, as a guilty culprit having pressed the button a few times.
I think it's my third most, because people really like to buy me a drink.
That's fair. The hydrate, buy a drink for the lady. That's a rather unique framing on the what people usually just put as hydrate and leave it there. The buy a drink for the lady, right?
Yeah, that's my... actually, that redeem, it used to be just a hydrate redeem, but during Valentine's Day, I had a special a date with the chat, and I changed it to buy me a drink, and at the time it was either water or wine. And I just kept it.
The Valentine stream that I watched and was like, I can't do anything here, I'm gonna be too embarrassed. Yeah. And I could lead into a question off of that, but that's in my later category, so I think I'll try to stay a little on script for now. But we'll get to the role-playing topic later whenever you bring it up or whenever we're deep in the questions. For now,
All right.
I'd like to start our first category of questions, that is generally about your time streaming. So, our first question, are there any standout experiences, either positive or negative, you've had with streaming?
Honestly, the amount of love and compassion that my viewers have shown me, and the friendships that I've made since starting, it's very. Sometimes it's very overwhelming. I'm sure those who are from my streams that are in here have been there and made me cry before.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of positive.
I'm not used to that. It's very, very different for me. Yes, you have, Dooney.
It's nice to get some positive reinforcement and positive friendships from just doing something you like to do.
Yep. I don't think I've had a bad experience from streaming.
Oh, that's certainly fortunate then. I know some people have the misfortune of winding up catching the attention of the stray follow bot or this drama or that drama. So the fact that you've had a positive experience with everything is just great. Just lovely.
Follow bots aren't that difficult for me to handle. Like, they can be a little annoying, but I don't get a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I've yet to really get a troll.
Fair.
So it's been rather calm on my side, I feel.
I suppose I could ask one because I have my own example of somebody making the mistake of thinking I was a giant lady, and then coming into chat completely thirsty, and being like,
oh no.
So, to verbatim, a user by the name Big Guy 2x4, their only interaction in chat was, hey, what if I shrank on your couch and you sat on me?
Okay, I get a lot of those messages, but it's not something I can't handle.
And I just see Sarah's brain processing,
Yeah,
what type of...
there's, the number of people that I can think of that would say something like that nonchalantly, along with people who would say that who are really trolly. It gets really questionable which one, when you know the people and they've got a report for it, then it makes sense. But I'm not sure about that. Like, I also start wondering, like, to cleaning that up is just no.
I have a friend who
mess.
constantly comes into my streams and asks, "Put me in your mouth," and I have to tell him no.
No, Sanus is
Are they
not
trying
out
to
here
simulate
tonight.
like being a gummy bear or something? Like, is this how? Is that how it is? I'm trying to think why somebody would ever want to be eaten like that. Like,
Right? I'm glad I'm not the only one who questions that.
yeah,
That sounds horrifying.
I don't have the full
I mean,
logic behind it, but as somebody who nom noms people in stream regularly, I will agree it's certainly questionable.
so like, I can understand somebody going for a taste, I guess, but like, I don't know. It just, it's hard to put like a finger on exactly what somebody wants with it.
Yeah, it is certainly it's a weird headspace. I'll say that much.
But it's good that you have an environment that, like, the community that you really know and they understand, treat you well. That's honestly, that's a godsend. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Take care of the people who take care of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Saru can vouch. My Discord or my chats, everyone is super nice. I've yet to meet someone who's been very upsetting with me or with others.
Yep. And I will say, a lot of it is the type of person you are tends to, draw in the type of audience you get as well. So, if they see someone as, sweet and kind as you, of course they're going to want to be sweet and kind to you, right? For a lot of audience cases, it's something like that, I would say.
I could see that, yeah.
sometimes, your audience grows independent of you, but especially for early phases, who you're around and who you interact with, a lot of that is just swayed by who you are and who wants to stick around. Although, with this brief moment, it looks like there's a couple of chat questions from a little while back that I want to get to before we get too far ahead. And we have a usual question from Tactful Crane in chat. As I always ask, favorite cheese?
Oh, I actually really like Swiss cheese.
Swiss. Okay. And I'm going to warn you, some of these questions from chat are going to be way out of left field, so if any of them you don't feel like answering, feel free to say so.
Okay.
And the next question comes from Grim. Sanus, is it true that you are the personal toaster to a Crystal Queen Kaiju?
Well, since the Crystal Queen Kaiju was in here earlier, I'm not sure if she still is. Yes. If I am out and she is alongside me, I always make sure to carry extra bread, because if she gets hungry, that could be doomed for a lot of different people.
Yeah, and I don't think Sarah's familiar with the way you toast bread, and I'm afraid to explain it myself, so, do you want to fill Sarah in on that
Okay.
particular joke, and anybody who doesn't know in chat?
Okay, I can explain it. So, being a kaiju, my body is naturally warmer, hotter than most others. Due to the radiation and there basically being a nuclear reactor inside of me, my friend figured out that you can put bread between my breasts, my booba, and it will toast it.
Yep.
Efficient. Efficient. Yeah, I definitely a way I could say that. Efficient. Double-sided toaster. Yeah. Yeah.
It is a very unusual way to toast things. Yeah.
I guess it leads into the question. I have to ask. I'm sorry. It just comes to mind. What was the most comfortable toast for you to toast? Is it always just, the whole wheat bread, or, 12 grain bread? What's your favorite bread to toast on yourself?
I don't know how I can answer that question. It all feels the same. Sometimes I don't even notice that she puts it in, and then it just it pops out.
So general purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and it looks like we got a raid bringing the socks. So I hope you brought extra large socks, because we have a kaiju that we're interviewing today. Thank you, Kaz, for the raid. Welcome, raiders. We are currently interviewing Sanus here. So feel free to check out their or Sarah's links from this, and make sure you drop them both a follow. But let's see, where were we with the not really feeling the bread, so it's all kind of the same to you?
Yeah, I don't really notice it that much. And also, to be fair, I shouldn't say this because she's in here, but she's yet to figure out it's not just toast that you can cook on me.
You know?
There's a story my sister told me that when her boyfriend, now husband at the time, when they were trying to be a little, behind closed doors, she said the best way to attract him was to bring actual bacon and fry it on herself.
Huh.
I don't know. Mess.
I just don't know what to make of that particular one. I'm gonna be honest.
Canadian black bacon, or or strip bacon.
Oh.
There's a big difference between the two of them. I mean,
I don't think I
Canadian
asked.
back bacon's nice, but I can't imagine the strip bacon would work. I guess you could dry it after, yeah.
I've yet to ask her what kind. I kind of wish she didn't share the information,
You
being
know,
that was my sister. But she's a little bit more open about how her relationship is.
understandable. Understandable. I will mention that we may have to make sure that the AC on the roof is turned up a little bit higher than usual because well, if you're radiating enough heat to cook things, Sarah across the table for me is an ice slime. So
Ooh.
yeah,
I don't want to melt.
no melts.
More than normal, but
Oh.
you know.
Yeah, so
Well, don't worry. I can regulate the heat. If I'm concentrating, I can regulate the radiation that I put off.
Excellent.
So
all right,
you
keep
don't
the
have to
Sarah
worry
safe.
too much. Yep.
All right, and let's see. I believe we have one more chat question that was. Oh, we have one more related to the toast as well, but Otaku Anime with their usual question. Garfield cart? That's
Is
the
a
question.
question.
Yes.
That is a question.
It is a game that exists. They have created enough attention to it through these interviews that I wound up in a group collabing some Garfield cart. So Garfield cart?
I've never played it, I don't own it, and I don't think I've ever seen the game.
Well,
so now I know.
have you
that
seen
it's a
Mario
game.
Kart?
Yes.
Think that, but Garfield.
Then I would probably not be good at it.
Fair enough, fair enough. And the last of the audience questions before I move back into the planned ones. And I think you've already touched on this with the controlling your body heat and the radiation, but how do you control how toasted it is for the bread?
So, my body is it's a little hard to fully explain. I have something known, one of my traits that I have within is known as a bioatomic nature. It's basically, again, I'm like a walking nuclear reactor, but I'm also able to cool myself down so I don't get too hot, or I can heat myself up depending on what I'm doing. Radiation that I might put off, I'm able to pull back in very easily so I'm not harming the environment around me.
Alright. That does make some sense, although pulling in radiation that you're radiating off sounds like quite the task from what little I know of physics and the speed of light.
Well, when I was younger, it was something I didn't know how to do, how to regulate my own radiation, and it was my sister and I, we'd put it off too much, and it would actually hurt us physically because we weren't used to it. So my mother, who also shares this trait, she used to keep us close by, and she would pull in the radiation instead, making sure to keep us cool and not putting off too much.
Alright, that does make some fair sense then. That makes some sense. That makes some sense.
Being able to control it. I guess the question is, how well can you control it down? Like, how precise on, like, internally can you control it? Are you able to give out just a little tiny trickle of it? Or is it more just you radiate it out all over? Like, can you give somebody an X-ray? Can you give somebody, like, or can you toast a kettle from in a certain direction without harming somebody next to it?
It's harder to control it once it's outside of my body. I can just pull it back in. I can condense it into specific parts of my body and release it. I guess, a kaiju. I'm sure you've all seen the Godzilla film or have seen something from it.
At least one.
The fire breath that I'm able to condense it into my mouth and shoot it out like a beam. One of the things that I personally learned how to do that my siblings can't, because they have their own versions of it, is I can actually help speed the growth of plants around me using radiation.
Oh. That certainly sounds like a very handy tool when you're trying not to destroy everything. Especially when your footsteps may uproot a bunch of grass and a whole bunch of other plants.
Yeah. It also helps when I've been on Earth for so long, I can grow my own plants to the size that I need them to in order to create my own food and stuff like that, as to not harm the environment around me.
Mm-hmm. Certainly a lot more gentle with the world than a lot of other people who are similarly kaiju tend to be, right?
Yeah. I think it has more to do with how I was grown and how people treat kaiju on Earth.
Fair enough, fair enough. And it looks like the idea of giant food has caught a few people's in chat's attention.
Yes. You're telling me, Sanus. Oh no, Grim.
I...
It is very similar to the Titans from the Monsterverse, as Grim had pointed it out in chat. I have been watching the movies and stuff since coming to Earth, making sure that I understand why people view kaiju as monsters.
Makes sense, makes sense. And, oh, well, Four's here, and they're going to be bearing some unusual questions, but, they seem to have claimed the frequent spot for the climbing, from what I know of your streams.
Well, I'm certainly more used to it now, so let's hope I can get it on there right. There we go.
And hopefully, we get the pixels back. Your homeworld may be trying to call you real quick. You're losing a little bit of connection with Earth here.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully, let me see if we can stabilize that a little bit. I'll refresh the source. Let's see. Refresh. Hopefully Sanus will be back in just a moment visually. There we go. There we go. We almost lost you for a second. Aye.
My only rule when you climb me is to make sure you're safe, because if you fall off, I might not be able to catch you in time, and I don't want you to get hurt.
Yep. Sanus' number one priority when interacting with people on Earth is to make sure no one gets hurt, it seems like. Would that be right?
That is my goal. I am trying to change as many minds as I can about kaiju, that we're not all monsters, and to not just open fire when you see one.
Yep.
Safety first.
Safety first.
Safety first for the kaiju and for the people that climb the kaiju. That is definitely a definite necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like your own personal OSHA.
I know, anytime I'm giant and interacting around things, there seems to be an odd amount of people that want to either jump somewhere dangerous, like, I believe I've seen some people trying to jump under your foot or jump in your mouth, like you said earlier, any number of other things. And it's a little bit odd, right?
Under my foot, in my mouth. I've gotten people trying to jump where I'm trying to sit.
I feel like it's a common running trait with humans. A lot of them seem to like to do dangerous things. We have like going off of a waterfall, trying to jump a canyon off of a motorcycle. It seemed to do that frequently. So I think it's something to be understood rather than feared.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that... Uh-oh. I'm fading again, help me.
Oh, no. Right, we can try to refresh again, but we might need to We might need to make sure as few other things are using up your connection as possible if it keeps up. Let's see,
I'm
refresh
trying to see
should
what
bring
else
back
I
Sanus. There we go. There we go.
can close that and that. Here, let me just close this out. Okay. So
We are saved from
As-
PS1 era Sanus.
as much as I try to be as safe as I can, I'm not. I am still big, and I don't exactly know my height sometimes. So sometimes things like if I take a step, um, things might break. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
oh
There's
no,
things
like
breaking.
that.
Well, fortunately, we
I'll
don't
fix
keep
it.
audience members in that building.
Oh, that's good.
The next one on that side, however, there may be some audience members sneaking in, there may not be. My usual
Oh.
co-host sells tickets to that building, apparently, but, since they're not here, I'm going to assume the building's empty, unless Sarah's got into some, back market dealings here.
I like to leave it up for chance.
Ah, so...
I mean,
Oh no.
they didn't pay for insurance, so there are budget seats there.
Budget seats.
If anyone's in there, please. I'm sorry. I hope I don't hurt you.
They signed a waiver. They're fine.
If you see a tail coming towards the building, evacuate, duck and cover, and panic.
The more expensive seats actually come with the more expensive seats actually come with Velcro that they can use on the walls.
Oh no.
Oh lord. And apparently Kaz already paid for the tickets anyway, so it's a win-win. Wait a second, Kaz. Ay. Well, humans are risk takers apparently, even when the risk is literally just certain doom by kaiju, apparently. Yeah. But
I wish
humans
they
be
wouldn't.
humans.
It makes me feel bad.
You do
And
your
then
best.
sometimes I get guilted.
Uh.
One of my friends likes to guilt me.
Ay.
I'm not sure if he's in chat or not, but the last time I accidentally destroyed a jet, he still likes to tell me that they had family, and it makes me feel bad.
The same, jets that were going, hey, you broke some of our stuff. Let's go for a photo shoot and then use your legs as a landing strip. Those people? The military people
Those
there?
people.
Yeah. I feel like they were asking for trouble for the second jet, though, trying that. Not really safe. Ay.
I didn't even notice until after I had jumped in the water, so.
Yeah. Remember, if you're not giant, interacting with Sanus requires common sense or safety, not, diving in heads first. That's how people get squished. Don't get squished. Ay. But, let's see, I believe, we actually had a lot of a segment for that. My brain just realized, oh yeah, on to the next streaming-related question. That's what we were talking about, right? Oh no, we side-railed for a while there. That's gonna be, we're gonna be having a good long interview with that right then. Good. So, the next question with relation to streaming and your time before you, showed up on Earth and since you showed up on Earth, are there any communities you've taken part in or really enjoy that may have influenced you one way or the other?
I didn't really join a community before any of this. I created my own. Instead, I have stated this on Twitter and on stream. I am a professional role player. I get paid to roleplay with others, basically. I have my own server for roleplay. I try to separate my roleplay and my VTuber stuff because I don't want people to think of me differently who watch me
Mm-hmm.
on stream versus my roleplay self. They're very different people. When I roleplay as Sanus, um, very same, similar. Everything that I do on stream. In fact, my Sanus here is the same when I roleplay her in my server.
I imagine, much like a lot of people have the reaction to the word, you don't want people to wind up in the roleplay server and then go, oh, it's the famous person. And just, see
That
you that way, huh?
that I play a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm.
In 1 year, my first year of starting the roleplay server, I had over 100 characters, NPCs, things that I had to create personalities for, and I've been doing this for 5 years now. So I can't even imagine the amount of characters I had
Mm-hmm.
my own hands in.
That's a lot of characters. I imagine, not all of them are as in-depth as Sanus, but, some of them probably have, just as in-depth or whatnot. Are there any, examples on the just as complicated side and some on the, relatively straightforward side you might be willing to share?
Well, I would say any of my siblings, Manny, Animus, my niece Naoko, my mother Miki. She is very, very in depth. Personality, she's a bit opposite of mine. She's more aggressive, easily to anger, but she's very caring of the people she considers family. Even though she might yell at them, except for her children. I don't think she's ever really disciplined us. Um, but she worries about others. Even though she doesn't want people to know that. Um, but the only other character that I can think that was as in depth as Sanus, and I've had her actually longer, was my first roleplay character. Her name was Visarlia. She was also a small girl. I think she was a little bit shorter than Sanus. Long blonde hair, and she actually used her hair as weapons.
Oh.
Um, there's a lot about her. I ended up wanting to distance myself from the character due to a lot of technical reasons. And because of that, I had ended up killing her off as a character in a story, which I cried for like 2 weeks after.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to do it to progress.
That
But
does
there's a
make
lot.
some
There's a
sense.
lot of characters.
Yeah. And I think that's, well, especially in terms of RP and just kind of branching into some specific subcategories people might know and be a little bit more familiar with, things like D&D and Pathfinder. Character death is something that always is kind of on the edge of people's minds and not too many people deal with properly, right?
Yeah. And it to not go too much into the admin side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there for a while, we've always kind of tried to keep a revive system that you can only use it once. So if your character died, they can come back at least once. Um, but even with that, there for a while, if a person died in a story or in a mission, the admins would, some of the admins and a lot of the players would mentally attack that person who ran the story. And it got so bad that people are so worried now to kill someone on their mission that I don't. For the past 2 years, we've yet to actually have a character death because of how worried. Now, we're not trying to go out of our way to kill people.
But at the same
That should
time,
be
you can't
stated.
have actual stakes on the mission because the stress people are going to throw fingers at you and be like, hey, you murdered somebody. It's like,
That's correct. Yes.
hey.
We've had times with characters where you know going in there's risks that will be taken, and you know the character would do those risks because it's part of who they are.
Mhm.
Why would you resist that, right? So when one of our characters who's effectively wants to go out in a blaze, like not even wants to go out in a blaze of glory, but believes that no matter what, to save someone else for their own life is the paramount way to go, and goes in with, finds a way, sets off a coal mine, ablaze, and goes down with it. You go, that made sense. It was part of the character's, kind of like a paladin style of their
Mhm.
belief is who they are. So it there's a lot of things like death and, death, love, suffering, and everything that goes in between. It's interesting to know that it's interesting to hear that there are people that don't want that as a part of it. But everyone's to their own play style, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of my first RP characters in a D&D type of campaign was a rogue gnome who was acting as a detective of sorts. Ural Merit. Little guy, big weapon, stabby stabby when need be. And at some point in the campaign, he just jumps into a literal burning fire to try to save his contact, the person he knows from a certain area. Pull them out, and there's a lot of cases where a character does jump into danger, and the DM or the person running it is like, this is dangerous, are you sure you want to do it? And you go, yes, because that's what the character's doing. You don't expect to come out of everything unscathed if you know you're making a risk. If you want to play someone perfectly safe, well, we got villagers for that, assuming, we don't have any raids because there's a player with the backstory from there. Right? So, I get the mentality of being attached to a character and not wanting to lose them. But I don't get the mentality of not accepting the loss and then lashing out at others, is what I'll say.
The worst part on that is the person who had their character die, they're not the ones that would lash out. It was people outside of that situation who weren't even part of the mission that would lash out. I've
Wow.
had a hard time as of late getting into my server because when I run stuff, when I do story stuff, I no longer ask people their thoughts on the session. I instead I go, I hope you enjoyed it, because beforehand, whenever I used to ask, a lot of times I would get berated because, oh, I didn't like this thing, and they would focus on that one thing they didn't like so much, and it hurts. It hurts. And even now, now that I don't ask, my last thing I ran, I didn't ask, yet somehow someone sent me their feelings on the mission, on the story, um, and it's completely put me off doing stuff again.
It's I think that people forget that there's time and a place for criticism, whether constructive or deconstructive, or constructive or destructive, and there's a time just to enjoy the thing. And I find that if some people, it is frustrating. It is very
Yeah.
frustrating. People will go above and beyond saying, well, I will explain what went wrong or what I believe. It's not even what went wrong, it's what they believe, their opinion on what went wrong. They'll go through, they'll explain it, and you sit there and you understand. You go, but I just want to, this is a time to enjoy. This is a time for us to go through. If I want to learn something about how other people would enjoy a certain style, then I'll ask. But people should understand that at that point, it's enjoy the story, right? Enjoy that time together, that moment. So
I'd say
Yeah.
on my end, the only time I've really felt dissatisfied with where a character was left off was when a story got cut off as opposed to reaching a conclusion or the end of an adventure or a death. Where I have just like an adventurer. Another one of my own characters to bring up to the conversation, Shui, wild mage Naga, half snake, half lady, just roaming about, and the adventure was rather sandboxy and didn't have too much of a direction. So when we had the last session, it just kind of stopped as opposed to having a conclusion for a lot of it, because people got busy here and there and we didn't have a huge story to actually tie together for a final write-off. So I could understand discontent around that because you don't have a complete narrative there. But when it comes time, for a character to pass in a certain way, I'd figure, well, it hasn't happened to me yet, but there's been a few moments where it's like, yeah, they could have totally died there and that would have made sense, but also it would have been heck. Hey.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion and heart that people put into role-playing that claims like, hey, you did this, that, or the other thing wrong as the one running it, definitely just kind of slaps that and bats away, right?
Oh, the biggest problem in my server is we try to emphasize, please separate your personal feelings from in character and out of character. It can be hard.
Yep.
But if say I do something to you, Saru, that you in character, you're not exactly happy about, I don't want you to come out me out of character because you weren't happy about it.
Yes,
That's
I can
hard.
I can see it now. Just the, can't believe you won't let me munch on people. Horrible person. Like that type of no. And that's, I think, the only thing, we butt heads on is, I may be a little bit more liberal with breaking things or munching, and you're just like, no, stop that. Ay.
Stop it. No eating.
Listen, I'm behaved on the roof of a building right now. I'm not even threatening to eat anybody. Uh-huh. Ay. But yeah, being able to, laugh after, banter like that and understand that we're both joking about a thing with in-character banter, yeah, that's important. Separation of character in and out, where that's fine. If you think you are that character for whatever reason, that's how you get a lot of unhealthy situations.
It's a lot of it is people, they put themselves into their character. And that's not bad. It's not bad to have some self-insert. It happens.
Yep.
But do note that you are not this person. You are you, and that person is them.
It's almost like some people would do well to have kind of like a self-insert kind of training to learn how to handle actually putting themselves into a game, because I feel like kind of like the idea of if I take a character and I give it something completely opposite to how I normally feel, I have to, and I'm wanting to learn, I would go in and learn, okay, character feels this opposite way that I do, so I'm going to look at it from their perspective, but like know that it's separate. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if people just take their own self-inserted, feelings, that they don't break that bond natively. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
you you look at the character, you're like, I want to see character, like I see myself being there with the superpower. I see myself being there with, the sneak attack super strikes.
That
It's like, but they have to learn that you're seeing the character go through. You're not being the character to go through in that scenario, in that specific scenario.
So that does remind me of a campaign where I had an issue with that, because the concept of the campaign that was being run by the friend was, it's literally us from 2 years from now thrown into the campaign. And I'm like, okay, what do I do in a situation like this? And I overthink everything and feel guilty about everything, even when I pick what I think is the best option possible. So that's what I did in character. The character's me, so that's what I did out of character, and everything spiraled out. It's like, I can't play this game. This one is... It's
That
really
sounds
cool.
rough.
But also, wow. Just because, there's no good answers, doesn't mean I need to, rack my brain over guilt because I couldn't save a friend from, being tortured in a tent by a whole caravan of merchants until afterwards when we can catch them and ambush them after. Like, that's the type of situation I get thrown in. It's like, how am I supposed to process this as me? So I definitely get the separation of character and player being very important, and one for one, This Is You from the Future campaigns, they may sound amazing. Probably not the best idea. Like,
Yeah.
no.
It's a little, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a definite experience thing, because I know that like Sanus would be able to go through and do that successfully because she knows. But like for somebody who's fresh into fresh into that world, I don't think they could do it as quick. There are some people who are very, very good at separation of concerns and separation of principle, but yeah, I feel like it's
Yeah.
for most of us, me included, it's a learned skill. It's a learned
It
trait.
was like my fourth or
Yeah.
fifth campaign, but the framing around it of it's you from the future that you're acting out was like, no, that's not gonna work in my brain. It's me. I'm thinking. That's not, no. So, well, it definitely sounds like RP stories for days and days, huh?
Oh, lots of them.
Yeah. Sticking
Too many
slightly...
for this
Oh.
to the stream. Too many for this interview.
Yeah, I can only imagine, but sticking slightly on topic, the first sub-question I have after communities was roleplay related, so I kind of had a feeling it would head this way. But how many people would you say you've met through your roleplay community that you built up, and how many would you say are, good individual friends as opposed to just people you've met?
That's really hard.
Yeah.
I've probably met thousands of people
Hey.
over the past 5 years, and I've had to individually talk to each of them. I don't have my DMs on this account have always been very active.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say how many because the amount of people that I considered very close friends, I have come and gone. I've gotten really close to a lot of people, and you would think that there wouldn't be a lot of drama when it comes to roleplay and stuff, but there is.
There is.
And I've lost a lot of good friends. Some people that I felt like I was closer to them than I had been people in real life. It's hard to say.
That's more than fair. That's a whole lot of people then that you gotta interact with, and a whole host of stories that are yours to keep or share whenever you please, right?
Yeah.
Well, potentially moving on to a lighter tangent with relation to the roleplay communities, are there any overarching trends you've noticed between characters and their players? Like any tropes or, rule of thumb,
Okay,
this
yeah.
to that?
VTubing and role playing is very similar with certain character designs in terms of personality. You have, you know, tsundere is a big one for some people, playing those types of tropes.
Yeah.
Edgelords, they're to the point. Edgelords are to the point that I've had some admins critique, not to them, but like they'll critique it to their friend group.
Oh no.
Seeing someone write a big paragraph, a big edgy paragraph, and they'll like do like maybe checklists or a bingo card of what they see. Um, there are a lot. There are very much a lot because people try to make their character very anime. They base it very much on anime, and
Ah.
anime is filled with tropes.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. A lot of people want to, pull inspiration from their favorite character and base everything off that.
Yep.
You know, off the top of my head, there is one anime character that I pulled a very mild bit of inspiration from for my own design. So, either you familiar with Roka no Yusha or the Heroes of the Six Flowers? Or the Six Braves
I
of the Flower, whatever name it goes by?
absolutely love that anime. In fact, that's actually really funny.
Oh?
One of the characters that I made, that I played for just a little bit, not a long time. I wanted to see how a system would work. Was based on I made him, the main character from that.
Adlet Meyer. Yep.
I absolutely loved his design. I loved his attitude towards stuff. I don't think there's any problem with inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely go for it.
The main aspect I wanted to pull was, the hair, and people don't usually get to see the back of my hair where it, fades over to red and starts, going into a more flamey
Yep.
look. But that would be like, that's the one thing that's like, if I did dye my hair at any point or wanted to cosplay a character, that'd be the one for me. So I understand
Absolutely
wanting
love
to
his
pull from it.
design.
Adlet Meyer, the strongest man in the world. Just, scrawny looking kid compared to some of the other characters.
He's just anime Batman.
Yeah,
Always has a
exactly.
tool.
And he actually, thinks out some of these problems and tries to figure it out.
Yeah.
Exactly that scene. Can your science explain why it rains? Yes. Ay. So I definitely understand influences there. But speaking of inspirations and influences, are there any inspirations or influences that you had when you started, well, designing? We'll narrow the scope to just Sanus, or when you started streaming? What inspirations or influences did you pull from?
So, I've had Sanus for 5 years, so it wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be from when I started streaming.
I did make sure to throw an or instead of an and in there, yes.
Yeah. um, I didn't have inspiration for her personality. Originally, she was just going to be It's funny. I created Sanus originally not to be a character that I would want to play all the time. She was just going to be kind of an NPC to the side.
Mm-hmm.
But it was through others' interactions with her that I developed such a huge attachment to her. Her design originally was, and some of you might recognize this, some of you won't. Initially, it was based from an online comic known as Kaiju Girls. Um, and her design was based off of Godzilla Jr. in that. That's really like the only thing I can say I pulled a inspiration from.
So a lot of the character of Sanus today has developed and built up from a relatively blank slate, then. Sounds like?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, fair enough, fair enough. And, yeah, there was definitely lots of mention of kaiju, and I know that a lot of the people that hang around with you seem to, either be fans of kaiju or kaiju themselves.
Yeah.
So, this is one where I'm only tangentially familiar with kaiju. Like, anytime I've seen the movies, it was either way back on VHS or when I'm watching a cheesy movie with my mom about the end of the world, because my family loves their C-grade, cult classic movies for that. But, and my brain just forgot the question for a second, but...
Oh.
Yeah, 404, question not found. Right. For a layman explanation, somebody who's not familiar with kaiju at all, could you give, like, a introduction to just a very brief run over of this is what kaiju are?
Yes, I could try. If Grim was still here, he could give the biggest paragraph, everything explaining it all. So I'm gonna have to go off of it from memory.
Okay.
Kaiju is a term in Japan that is strange monster. Now, this could be things from anything really. A dragon, it could be goblins, things like that. Things that are monstrous. For what the term that the world uses kaiju for is actually the term in Japan is daikaiju, which is a giant monster.
Okay.
They usually are. You see them a lot with like walking around, destroying cities, harming people, because a lot of their films have some reason for it. Godzilla was the nuclear bombings back in World War II. And they usually like treat the world nice, stop destroying stuff. This is what might happen, stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's kind of evolved into a community. The kaiju community is very very open, not sparse, open. Now you have things like, so you started out with King Kong was the first. Then Godzilla came in. Then you started getting into Ultraman, which is a whole other part of the genre, tokusatsu, stuff like that. But yeah, just giant monsters, stuff on that. It's usually what it is.
Makes sense. And there's a couple of comments I can tangent off of, probably way too many just in that answer alone, so I'll try to stick to two. One is, just for curiosity in my own answer, it sounds like, then, anything that has a Monster of the Week formula, if we stick with the Japanese, not tradition, the definition of kaiju, any Monster of the Week type of show is a kaiju show, strictly speaking. Where...
Yes.
Yeah?
Sort of.
Sort of.
The monster is a kaiju. That
yeah.
doesn't mean it is a kaiju show.
Fair. So, as long as the Monster of the Week is on screen, that's kaiju airtime, but being a kaiju show would be focused on the monsters, as opposed to, like, the hero of the week, and the, all your, morphing heroes and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And let me see if my brain will remember the second question. My brain is... Okay. I recalled it. So, you mentioned how a lot of Kaiju, the giant monsters, were based off a particular aspect of disaster, some, horrific event, and something that a lot of people might not know if they only know modern kaiju movie of big monster smash, scary, huzzah, look at the fight scene, is that I believe the original Godzilla was framed and shot as a horror movie, right? Where until,
Correct.
was it halfway or more through that you didn't even have Godzilla show up? You just had a missing boat or something like that?
Missing boats, destroyed areas of like islands, cities and stuff, towns and stuff on the islands and stuff would be destroyed, things like that. But yes,
Yeah.
very much a horror.
Things destroyed without, a moments of information, because that's how a nuclear bomb was. Just the bomb went off and nobody outside the radius could get information about it until much later, of people being on the scene being like, wow, everything's radiation, I'm dying, or anything like that, right?
Correct.
So a lot of if you know the modern kaiju stuff, you might not realize just how terrifying the sources are if you ever look back at it. So that was less a comment, more just a sidebar, or less a question. All right. Well, a brief final potential question, although I think you're going to have a relatively common answer to this one, is looking back on your time streaming, or I suppose you can fan it back to your time RPing and having Sanus as a character as well. Is there anything you'd like to change, either inside or outside of your influence? So something you did or something completely unrelated that someone else did? Is there anything you'd like to change?
There are a few things I wish I had never put Sanus through, but I don't think I would change anything about it. I think going through it all, she is. I don't think I could have a more perfect character.
That's around the answer I was expecting, truth be told. A lot of people are very happy with where they're at, even if, they can miraculously find $1 million briefcase. Nah, they did what they do. No need to fix mistakes of the past.
Yeah, it's what made her. It's what made me who I am now.
Yep, an absolutely lovely person to talk with. Alright, that sums up my first batch of questions, so at this point I would like to open up the floor. So, Sarah, Sanus, if either of you have questions for anybody involved, or if members of the chat have questions they want to ask that haven't been asked yet, like, Snowdark didn't put a question mark at it, so I didn't process it as a question, but would you be a vampire or a werewolf? Any questions like that, feel free to throw them in chat. This is free space, free floor for everybody. And I guess that is a chat question. Would you like to be a vampire or a werewolf, given those two options?
I would rather not be either.
That
But
I
if
understand.
I had to choose, it would be different if you're asking myself in real life or if you're asking Sanus. I think Sanus would be okay with being a vampire. Actually, she wouldn't. Ooh. Alright, so something I've not mentioned on here yet is Sanus has a fear of blood. Badly. She's to the point that there have been people who've walked up to her covered in been bleeding, and she immediately passes out.
Oh, no.
So being a vampire would not work out
Not
for her.
Sanus's cup of tea.
So, if I had to pick one of the two, I guess I'd have to go werewolf.
So it seems. But, yeah. Questions like that from the audience, or if either of you have questions, feel free to go ahead. I'll just take a little bit more leaning back in my seat now.
I guess in terms of a question, relating to the variety of games that you've gone through. Specifically, things like Subnautica, Elden Ring, Monster Hunter Rise. These are all like these are all, fighting creatures, or, large scale, small scale creatures, and stuff. I have to wonder, what would Sanus's favorite creature be to, I guess, I don't know if I should say battle. I guess it depends on how you want to go with it. If if she would be more into battling them, or to have. And what would their least favorite be? So, in terms of everything that you can think of, from Subnautica, Elden Ring, Monster Hunter Rise, and stuff like that, what would their favorite, like, creatures be, and what would their least favorite?
I really, that's a really hard one.
I'm sorry if it's too. I
No,
I can narrow it down a
it's
bit,
good.
but
It's a good question. It's a great question. It's hard to. I've never thought of this one. I would say, in terms of facing off against, she's never. Sanus is not good with humanoid combat. She would much prefer to talk her way out of it. So that would probably be her least favorite combat. Creatures. I would probably say any dragon-like creature tends to pique the interest, because they're usually done so extravagant. So, what's the word? Over the top. Dragons are usually done so over the top, and I enjoy those kind of things.
Dragons are very showy creatures.
yeah.
Very in-depth and detailed.
It's great because you can get something serpentine, but you can also get something that's very scaled, more like a reptilian, like, the reptilian style foci. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
They also have very wide breadth to draw from, with Eastern and Western styles that lean into that too.
So I guess taking it a bit further, and I don't know if I had said it before in terms of it, but what would hers be? What would her favorite be? Actually, yeah, what would her favorite be to keep? Wouldn't have to battle it, more just like a pet. Would it still be the same? Kind of least favorite would be humanoid, and most favorite would be dragon
Definitely
kind.
least favorite humanoid. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to keep a human as a pet.
Even if some of them are clamoring for it.
Rather than dragons,
Yeah.
I think I will increase that spectrum from dragons to reptiles in general
As
as a pet.
Excellent. And
Alright.
does this match what you yourself would want in terms of it? Or is it also kind of different?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite animal have been lizards. I really like water monitors. So much so that the design for my kaiju, the actual kaiju that I have my traits from, was based off of water monitors.
Ooh.
Interesting. A friend of mine showed me water monitors. A friend of mine that I've had for a long time, and they're deep into reptiles, and they're like, they love them, but they also, you do not want to be near you do not want to be bit by any of them.
Oh,
Not
no.
at all. It would hurt.
Oh,
You'd lose some
yeah.
fingers.
Oh, yeah. Monitors are something you got to be very careful with.
I don't deal with many lizards where I am, but I know family has told a lot of stories back over in, I think the Midwest, the Texas type areas, where it's like, ah, yes, that big lizard out in the yard. Don't get bit by it or you lose your leg. Like, you don't want to mess with lizards.
Especially the ones in Texas. You have Gila monsters. They're
I
one of
think
the
that's
few
exactly the one my
reptiles with
family was
venom.
talking about. So,
Yep.
lovely.
Oh, Saru, I don't know if this will
Oh?
be. I don't know if this is a later or uh world building question. I don't know if I want to.
If it's a question, feel free to just throw it out there. Even if I got it
Okay.
covered later, covering it now is
Okay.
fair game.
So, um, so Sanus, well, sorry. In terms of world building, what's your favorite parts to design? Like for you specifically, what are when you really sit down and bite into it, what's your favorite part to design?
Lore.
The lore,
Lore.
like the history of the worlds and stuff?
History of the world, history of different parts of the world. One of my favorite things when I was helping design a TIF was I got to personally create the lore for the dragons as well as the lore
Ooh.
for the fairies.
Ah,
And they're both kind of intertwined with each other, and I absolutely love shaping it with that type of lore.
I'm so glad because
Okay.
that's being able to I guess flesh it out kind of thing, like be able to really give it the details that make it live. That's definitely, I can agree with that.
Over here, I'm more locked in the. I'm interested in the mechanics of the world and how, like, the magic system pieces
Yeah.
together and how this, that, or the other thing. And history has never been my strong suit, so making history is like, oh, that's daunting.
History.
And, just to sideline a little bit on this, that particular question is exactly why I asked Sarah in particular to co-host today, because I imagine that, you two would be on the same page with that. It was a hunch. That was like, who do I gotta at? Wait a second, Sarah.
Well, it's I love being able to kind of design lore and stuff like that because it allows you. So lore can basically be the fertile grounds that you can lead or that you can leave as a foundation so that later when you're adding a new character or when you're creating something in there, it has something to seed off of, so it just integrates so well. I feel like if I don't have a good solid history or background, it just ends up being like later down the line, I'm like, wait a second, this is, like I'll have a character and then another character comes along and I'll be like, wait, if I think about it clearly, what I've designed this character with is in conflict with this other character's predecessor design. And I'm like, oh, well, now I can't do that. And it's a lot easier to just feel like I can naturally grow a world once I have the foundation. I don't want to have it where every time I, put a new, it's like having a garden. I don't want to have to rip up every single root to put a new plant in there. It just doesn't
Yep.
feel good. You like to have a nice garden, like the ground set up, everything's planted. Like you've got all the stones around it. You've got the water level set, sprinklers, everything, and then you place it in, and it's great that way.
Yeah, I very much feel that. Um, so I have a team in my server, and each of us, I've grouped up the teams to build certain aspects of the world. Now, that team has left. We have new people now, um, but you can see the differences between the people who really worked on the lore of their area that they were put in charge of versus those who kind of just threw stuff in. Um, I'll go with one of the things that we built up, and it doesn't even have to be very in depth. Uh, there's a forest, an area known as Chordata. Each of the different important things are named after a scientific name of an animal. We kept that as our naming theme. So Chordata is the country, and then you have the big major city of Service, which is for deers. Um, and it's the Elven City, so we made it very natural. There's forests everywhere. It's where the fairies live. But then you have, we didn't put a lot into to the lore itself, but we put just kind of a nice coat on it. Versus we have another that it felt like they didn't really do anything. They just said, this is where the human capital is, and my characters are the children of the king and queen of them, and that was kind of it. They didn't really put into what they do.
There's a human capital there. That describes every country in the world.
Right there. Right over there. Right, you just a little bit over there. Yeah, right there.
Okay, but why
This
is
is
it
circle
here?
area. Yeah, why?
Why
Well,
is it here? And then there's like, what? They said, all right, well, we'll put in. This is where all of the bandits and scoundrels kind of live. It's kind of one of those like thievy towns. But why is the only human capital like this? Things like that. Give us something to work on to let the players be able to work off of it themselves.
I know as a player who's worked off of some settings themselves, one of the most interesting characters I've managed to pull out was set in a world that was actually built up with that type of history. Where, since we're talking D&D, it was gnomes and the dwarves were at war for some reason, and my character was a robot that was basically built by necromancy by the gnomes, and then sold to the dwarves, and then the dwarves figured out necromancy was involved and weren't happy, and that's why the war.
Oh.
So that that character got to go through a whole lot more than some of my other characters that are just, yep, this is character born in hometown. Don't you just love good old hometown? Oh no, it's on fire.
Oh, I always love that. I always love the default of I've got a human fighter or a human barbarian that came from a tribe. What's a tribe? I don't know. Oh, I see. That's really great. What happened to them? Oh, they wanted to adventure. I see. They need money? Yeah. Okay. Do they murder hobo at all? Do they kill just people randomly? It's like, yeah, that's the favorite part. I'm like, okay, you're a murder hobo. Why use from? No.
But violence is my tribe's way.
Yeah.
The only way.
What's your lore? 2d6. Oh, I see. Okay.
Ay. Yeah, it's always got to appreciate when you actually have the information to build off of and go for, because that leads to much richer interactions naturally down the line. So the fact that you both, get into the roots and actually build decent roots is quite astonishing, especially to me who's just like magic and, world physics go burr.
It's why I've been heavily going every other Saturday. I go into meetings with my team because we are fleshing out the mechanics, going back and seeing how they all work, what do we want to change, how do we fix things, and then after we're done with mechanics, because that's honestly the worst part about doing all of this is building the actual mechanics. It's very draining.
Yeah.
But after that, we're going to go into the world building, the lore, making sure everyone's on the same page. That way we can bring something interesting for the players to actually be able to play around.
Let's see, since we have a slight lull in conversation, I might bring up a couple of chat questions at this moment. Give you both a, moment to think and figure out your next question or tangent. And 4 has a question that I'm going to address in character and twist the question slightly for the first one. So, Sanus, if you were captured by Earth government for one reason or the other, and that information got flashed all over the news and made it back to your homeworld, how would your family react, and how would your friends on Earth react?
They probably would react the same exact way. They wouldn't believe it. They'd immediately launch a full-scale, we're going to break her out. I know my mom, for example, would be the worst person to come to Earth. I think that she would probably cause more destruction than even what you could, Saru.
I'm much on
saying
planets.
something.
Yeah, that is
That's saying a lot.
I don't leave anything left. There's never something in the first place if she's leaving less of a trace. Hey.
And the same with my friends. I feel like I've met a lot of kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
and they all would go on a rampage. I think that if I was in prison for something, they definitely have the wrong kaiju because of how I'm trying to act, as well as they've just unleashed the full armada of
Yep.
kaiju I'm trying to keep back. And there goes the earth. Exactly.
So, a polite message to any world leaders coincidentally watching this. Don't try to capture Sanus. You will not get anything good out of it. You will be erased from the timeline. Good day. That's one of Four's usual questions, twisted slightly to work better in context. The other question, if you were to appoint a president of the internet, who would it be and why?
The president of the internet?
President of the internet. They know all of the
get-
internet and they're in charge of it all.
I'd give it to a dog. Or a cat. Because I don't think a person would be good in that position.
It is an important distinction, though. A dog or a cat? Which one?
That's a hard one. I'd give it to a cat.
You give it to a cat?
Because a cat would get a bunch of complaints about how someone's doing something on the internet, or they'll get trolled, and they'll just look at it and then go back to sleep.
Fair. Cats run the internet already, basically, so... Oh, June the
Exactly.
kitty in chat on June is claiming they want to control the internet now because you're giving it to a cat, huh?
I don't know if June could handle it.
Wrong cat?
Yeah, wrong cat. I love you, June. But, I don't think you can... I've seen how you react to some things with just pictures of Dooney, and I think that might be too much for you if you have everything.
Yeah. Alright, that covers Four's questions, so if there's anything either of you want to bring up to talk or ask about, feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep looking at chat for more questions.
Oh. I'm really hard with questions.
I kind of started a bit strong with mine, and I may have burnt the steam out there.
Hey, at least you got, a real good question out that I was just like, that's a really good question. So, I'll glance over at a few in chat, and then, let's see. Sanus has already answered this one back when there was talk about pets to gather, and, what about a fairy pet? Sanus already addressed that one in chat. Let's see. Favorite characters to play in RP? From Dooney. So what are some of your favorite characters, Sanus?
Any of the Sangrias, honestly.
Sangrias.
I so much so that I've tried to make characters more recently, and I usually fall out with them because they're just not the same.
Fair. Let's see. Let me glance at a few other things in chat and see if we have more questions going about, or if we're going to just move on to more stray thoughts from here. Actually, I think we have another one of Four's usual questions that they haven't asked, but they do ask in pretty much every interview. Is there a conspiracy theory or... Oh, looks like June has one as well after this. A conspiracy theory or an off-the-wall explanation that you may not believe, but it makes just enough sense that you consider it for a second?
None that I can think of off the top of my head.
None that you can think of?
None
Not
that I
really
can
a
think of.
conspiracy theorist type of person?
I can't think of any right now. I think they're funny to look at sometimes, but I don't think I pay enough attention.
That's fair enough. Let's see. June's question was, does your plant magic like rapid growth effect? Does it affect plant life creatures? So, I believe earlier they were going like a druid that is composed of plants, or say treants, which are trees, but they walk.
It would. It definitely would affect plant life creatures.
Alright. Well, there you have it, June. Yes. Let's see. Let me glance at my next batch of questions then. If you do think of anything, either of you, feel free to just bring it up at any point and have me pause so you can ask whatever you wish to ask about. For now, though, I'll move on and nudge a little over into some of the questions, and I kept these questions a bit vague, so they've already been touched on in some capacities. But for the next little bit, I want to talk in character, in setting type things. Other worlds. So we know that you, Sanus, are not from this Earth that we're currently at right now. But how many... Have you visited any other realities, or are you aware of other worlds in the same context that Earth is different from your world?
I am aware of the infinite multiverse.
That's a lot of multiverse.
I've met another me. You've seen the picture of the other me, actually.
Yep.
She exists in a place that is labeled the Infinite Library, and it is a infinite scaling library filled with every book, every scroll, any kind of text, be it tablets, it could be things that are just placed on objects, anything. It exists in this library from the multiverse. From every single multiverse out there, this library gathers it and archives it. The other me lives there. She is basically its guardian.
And a question kind of relating to that, because I saw Sarah's reaction, and I'm aware that this is sort of a leading set of questions as well. So, with the regards to every book or text existing there, is it in the way that as soon as it's created somewhere in the multiverse, it is created within the library as a copy or effectively the same thing? Or is it that if it has or will existed, it exists in the library somewhere?
I don't personally know the mechanics. You'd have to ask the other me. But
that's fair.
If I would have a guess at it, it would probably be once it is written, then it appears in the library.
Alright. And do you know if these texts inherit any magical traits from the worlds they're from as well?
I believe they do.
So there's a possibility of something similar to me there then.
Yep, that's where I'm leading this. Because across the table from me, I don't know the exacts, but I know we've talked about it. What's your relation with the magic books again?
I am one of the tomes. One of the 14. Basically made from living tomes. So if it was when I was written, then I wouldn't be infused yet. But if it was after I was awakened, then it'd be when I was infused. So that's the question, is whether my predecessor version of me is there or if I am there. It's curious. It's very curious.
That is curious.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's something we'd have to get Sanus Hearts was, I believe, on, as opposed to our Sanus Sangria here. But that's the little curiosity, another one of those little things of why I particularly asked Sarah instead of anybody else. Because I knew the library connection was there too, and was like, ooh, let's do it.
It's incredible how everything can be so integrated.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's also the important part about there's never to reject, always to embrace. That's how I have to look at things.
Another interesting thing about my world in particular. So there are two types of magic. You have, in terms of usable magic, I should say. There are cruxes, which are inherited abilities or things that you've developed personally that either only you can do or others that you've worked with closely can do. And then there are tomes. Tomes are written magic from lore, from parts of the world that people have been able to write spells and incantations into and properly convert them into things that people can use as tools.
Okay.
So an example of a tome, I guess everyone who's seen some sort of fantasy knows of fireball spells.
Classic.
And then we have more advanced tomes like summoning spells.
Yeah. Or fancy high-grade teleportation gates. Those make sense.
I always believe summoning as teleport takes me from here to there, and then summoning is it takes you from there to here. So the idea of
We just flipped a sign on the spell.
Yeah.
Flip the sign.
You put a Nox instead of a Triss. You know, and what happened? Subtle. I don't know why.
And it sounded like the other class of magic you were talking about, or generalization of magic, is a lot more personal to areas or individuals or families.
Yes. I guess a good way to compare in terms of the different types of spellcasting is the differences between a wizard and a sorcerer. A tome is for wizards, but a crux is for sorcerers. It's something that you inherit, you get either from some sort of your higher entity, or you get it due to your heritage, or even if you want to make something based on it.
Okay. So that's the, type of magic that some people might see as, this is the inherited magic, this is the unfair nobles, this, that, or the other things you might see in some other settings where people are up in arms because magic is not for commoners in some settings, in some senses.
Yeah, you could say it like that.
It's not a one-to-one comparison, but there's some comparison there.
I can see that comparison.
Also, I imagine because anime was brought up earlier, some people might be like, oh, the bloodline eyes from Naruto and stuff like that as well. That type of,
Yes.
Yeah.
That type, yeah.
I see. Well, it makes sense then. And the idea that even something as fundamental as magic and the whole physics of the reality are different than your own, though, that must be a trip to wrap your head around sometimes if you travel place to place, right?
It's very confusing sometimes.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, there have been some instances of you on Earth casting magic. However, I've also heard that you're not quite as able to freely cast it as you would back on your own planet.
That's correct. I think I explained it in my server, but I can explain it a bit here more. In our world, as I said earlier, everything creates magic. Everything has magic.
Yep.
Because that's the natural order of things. On Earth, you don't have magic. So when I come here, my body is limited to what it created, what it has produced before I came over. So I'm only limited to the amount of magic that I can use that I brought. Because I can't make it.
Yep. Makes sense, and it also sounds like if you ever need a recharge, You just have to find your way back to your homeworld and spend some time there refilling your stores and building it back up effectively, right?
Basically, yes.
All right.
Makes me think like, I wonder then, for everything that can be stored with magic, could you technically bring snacks with you that would be infused? I wonder.
That's probably one way. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying, I, I'm curious.
And I have a little
I'm
bit of
just
a
imagining you bringing,
sub-tangent too.
yeah, just imagining you're bringing a tree, just a massive tree through. Just like, yeah, this is mine. This is for later.
So, the little sub-tangent from that as well, there's a couple of ways that it could happen if you bring a bit of a snack from your homeworld, right? Because, well, you, 5 foot tall, back on your homeworld, right? Standing over here on Earth, growing up from 328 feet or so up to an estimated 500 feet potentially. Well,
Yes.
I'm gonna say it in as simple a way as possible, but you seem to be very well clothed for somebody who is grown due to situations outside their control. So the question leading off from that is, if your clothes have grown with you, or if you've gotten large clothes custom made, as well, do you think the snacks could grow with you if you hold them in a certain manner, or if they would just remain very tiny in your hand? Those are the
Honestly,
thoughts.
it's probably based off of how my clothing is made versus how the food is made. My clothing all have a special weave in it, and it's enchanted because in order to communicate with other races and other planets, there are spells that automatically translate written text in word for me to understand. And it also translates what I'm saying to what you could say. So if you don't I'm speaking Elvish. So you're hearing me speak English. Now, if we take in magic, enhance and all of that, it might keep, because Earth is not used to magic, it might keep that bit infused and make it stay with my size. So, as you said, that if I brought food over with some magic in it, it probably would stay to my size.
But if
Now
we
the
had a
question
mundane bag
is-
of potato chips.
Yeah, that I don't know. But my question is, could I infuse magic into somebody? And if I take them to my world, would they remain at the size that they were when
Relative to you?
Yeah.
You know? And this is gonna be me, encouraging the reckless things. Sanus, that sounds like a fun experiment. You should do it sometime.
Oh, no.
I'm sure you have plenty of volunteers who'd love to visit. Ay. Yeah, I know.
I'm not sure I want to put someone through that.
You already have
wants to
somebody
do it.
raising their hand, huh? Although, how large are fairies on your world? Because they might have a little bit of a skewing of the experiment too, right?
Well, Dooney says that they are about 6 inches, and that's probably the same height as a normal fairy in my world. But if the magic,
Okay.
if it does work, and I bring Dooney over,
So if it holds,
Dooney
Dooney
would
would be
be-
fairy sized to a fairy. More or
Yeah.
less. Alright. Well, Dooney is very eagerly volunteering along with a few other people like Mike in chat. We'll have to see if we can encourage Sanus to do an experiment that might be explicitly dangerous for the people being taken along, huh?
Do you remember that thing I was saying before about people diving into dangerous situations, going off of waterfalls, or
Yeah.
putting themselves into trouble? I'm pretty sure there will be enough people to do that, and they'll, yeah.
A few of them
It,
already in
it's
chat going, ooh,
the
me, me,
writing's on the
me.
wall. The writing's on the wall. Literally, actually, it's right on that wall, right there.
Let me just, Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Right over there.
Mm-hmm.
Can't see it
Probably.
from here.
Oh, it's the fine print over there. It also says
Yeah.
something like,
Right over there.
don't let anybody from Sanus's world know other than her if you can help it, because, yeah, we Sanus is trustworthy to not mess with that, but imagine the missing
over
people
there.
cases, huh? Yeah, over there.
Oh, my niece in
Ah.
particular.
Yeah, your niece.
My niece is probably a lot like you, Saru, in that she's okay with eating others.
Oh no, nom nom.
But more in the fact that she just thinks anything. She's almost like an animal. Anything smaller
small,
than her,
it's
that's
food.
free game to eat. That's her.
I'm getting glared at from across the table. Ay. Listen, I just appreciate Tiny Sarah for cute, okay? None of this conversation has to do with that button and that Jin joke, huh? That glare, I can just feel it. Okay.
I don't find a button for pain, but I'll make one.
Oh no. I'm gonna have to look out for a while now. Oops. Heck. Oh no. Ford, don't encourage this. Sarah, burn a hole in his head with your glare. Ay. That's why I'm moving around trying to rotisserie it so the glare hits different parts of the head. Oh no.
Cooked.
No. Roasted mouse. Please no.
Like a nice layer of cheese, cooked on top of a casserole. That's basically what you're
Cheese.
turning into.
Wait. That. No. I understand that,
you have to eat yourself because you're cheese.
You know what the oddest part of this conversation is?
What?
The oddest part of this conversation is the idea that Sanus just suggested as the natural conclusion has technically happened before.
Oh.
So, I was just, sitting there and messing with a few things for stream, and, another me pops up, and they're like, alright, it's time. Push the button. You, eat you. It was a very confusing time, so...
Does it count as auto-cannibalism? I can't remember.
Yeah. I think that's what that is.
Technically, yes. With the heavy dose of magic. So, very, wiggly, bizarre moments there. That is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouroboros, definitely. Snake eating its own
Just,
yeah.
Snack on a timeline or two. Oops. That, ay. Jeez, my face is, a little bit out there, because I'm smiling and mildly flustered. I was caught off guard by that one. Oh, jeez.
Okay, but
so, yes?
did you enjoy it?
I'm having a good time, but also
No,
heck...
eating yourself.
Oh, eating myself. Oh, that in particular. Oh.
I was in the middle of a drink when you said that, and I'm very much concerned.
It was one of the weirdest things I've done, I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's a thing that's happened, it's a story to tell, but you don't get people who say it's a story to tell in response to did you enjoy it, and they usually say yes, right? It was weird. It was weird. Just imagine, okay, you got a person in your mouth, but you're also the person in your mouth, and you're in a mouth, and everything's confusing. Yeah, it's a little bit scrambling. It's a little bit scrambling of the brain. 1 out of 10 would not recommend unless you're very confused.
Or really
that's...
hungry.
I'm not sure that really solves any of the hunger, though, because, like, I'm here, and I only have what I, have, but then if I eat me, there's nothing different now. I'm still here. Right? It's like one of those... It's like the grandfather paradox. If you went back in time and, you grandmothered yourself, that doesn't mean that you get to be, more existent. It just means the paradox is in a stable time loop.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with that. I don't know.
That's my answer. I don't know. I don't know anything about that time I ate myself.
I really don't want to think about my grandmother like that. Or my grandpa like that. I really don't.
So, some things are better left unsolved. And the mystery of eating oneself, I'm gonna put in that category.
Definitely.
So, that's my answer. Confusion across the board.
Yeah.
What did you join in on? Absolute confusion. Yes. And, vorception of me eating myself as part of the suggestion of rotisserie lasagna cheesing me. Something like... Yay.
Hi, Saris.
So, I think I have tangents and questions, but let's see. I believe we were talking about other worlds briefly prior to the grilling and confusing that happened. I believe you mentioned the Library of the Infinite, was it? I believe you mentioned...
The Infinity Library.
The Infinity Library, okay. Infinity Library, you've mentioned your home world, and you've mentioned Earth. Are there any other worlds of note that you've either know about or have visited?
Sort of visited.
Sort of visited.
Sort of. In this world, you all know it as it's Eorzea or Final Fantasy XIV.
Ah.
I physically was not there, but I was spirited away into Eorzea at one point.
Okay. I know very little about it, but...
My soul was taken and put into a body in Eorzea.
I can only imagine the type of adventure it must have been from what little I know of Eorzea and the everything that goes on in that universe.
A lot.
I know very little. I know Sarah has some experience with Final Fantasy XIV, as in last I saw before the most recent update, I think you maxed out literally every job and crafting job and beat everything. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
No shame.
Just across the table,
shame.
you probably have a little bit better shot at conversation than sitting over here with me.
Yeah, no, I've got everything at 90. Everything at 90, even just now, just helping with housing. But yeah, so the world itself, it's deep.
Yes, very deep.
Especially if it's a to the first style spiritual link, then yeah, definitely a heavy time.
Oh, jeez. Well, that sounds like that was an adventure and a half for you, at least. Just to undersell it, then, huh?
Yes, it was, definitely.
Oh, Lord. Well, the next question to ask you, Sanus, is, for each of the worlds you've visited or are aware of, what are some, quick notes of the good and the bad? Like, for example, if we start with Earth, what are some of the good and bad sides of your situation being, kaiju sized for Earth, very tall?
Uh, some good is I get to explore the world very easily, in fact. I get to see all the beautiful sights and how pretty this planet can actually be.
Mhm.
The bad is things like being attacked, knocking over things, uh,
Knocking all.
like that on accident.
I'll,
Um,
Kaz, I hope you got a good seat in there. Oh no.
oh, I'm sorry. And then, tripping is actually a lot more devastating on Earth than it is back home.
Yeah?
I have to sleep in the ocean because last time I slept up on land, I accidentally rolled over a busy highway.
Oh no.
Good news is it's less busy now.
Oh, those poor people.
Hey, at least we get around to, building better infrastructure then as opposed to personal cars everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's encouraging
Yeah.
public transport.
And then, the hardest thing to do while on Earth is if I get pranked by you or Dooney.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because that causes even more devastation. Because usually I grow to even bigger height. And just me being there is harmful.
At least the one prank caused you to be, fairy sized for a little bit, right?
That one prank, yes. But the prank that Dooney pulled on me where I became like 3, 4, I don't even know. I was tall enough that the tallest skyscraper goes up half of my face laying down.
Yeah, that's a wee bit tall. A wee bit tall. You're getting there. I may be, a little biased seeing as my usual side's floating out with planets, right?
Yeah.
You're getting a little
It's,
bit tall after that.
It's funny because you are still the second tallest VTuber I've met.
Oh?
The tallest VTuber I met is the one that brought me into VTubing in general. She is actually a planet VTuber. That is, she's way huge compared to Earth. I'd have to ask.
Fair.
Oh.
Planet VTuber. I've met a few just through the connections of Twitter that are based on planets or this, that, or the other thing. But I don't think I've gotten the chance to talk to too many of them, so that's definitely curious. And we got Cutsy climbing on your ear.
Yeah, I got it. Got her. You might know her. She's I would say a medium-sized VTuber. If I'm considered very small, yeah. Stella Luna.
The
She
name
most
the name rings bells, but I'm not sure it rings the right bell, so I'm gonna hold any comment.
okay. The most recent thing that exploded from her was she did the we're canceling based off our opinions on VTubers. That was her
Those posts I keep seeing a variant of every other day now.
tweet.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I still don't think I know them very much, but
two
definitely a
cute
different
kitties on my
person than
ear.
I was thinking with the first one, because for some reason my brain, hears a name like that and gets the wrong flags raised to some people who've been chased out of the community. It's like, no, I'm gonna not say it's them because that doesn't sound like somebody, Sanus would know right now and be talking fondly about, so I'm gonna wait for the explanation.
Oh no,
Yeah.
she's a good person.
Yeah. I would assume so with how you're talking about her.
I've known her a little bit longer than I had my server, actually. She was one of the 4 people to help me make my server.
Ooh. Nice, nice. Alright, well, I'll definitely have to check them out or hunt down the origin of that current trend and check them out because So I may be, planet munching mouse, but if there's a really big planet out there, it's like, ooh, hello. Definitely no ulterior motives ever as well. Nope. Ay. Alright. So, that covered some of the good and bad of Earth, though, right? With the particular size. Are there any other things you'd like to bring up, good or bad, for Earth or for other realms you visited?
Hmm. I guess the only other thing I can think about for Earth is I wish people would treat each other better. And that's about it.
Yeah. A lot of people on Earth think the same thing, too. Just, yeah. It definitely requires a lot of work. It is not the best of things, but there's still good people out there, so I'm glad that I get to meet
Yeah.
good people like the two I'm talking with right now here.
Aww.
Alright, well, in that case, I'll move along to the next little subsection, and these questions are going to be more directed out of character. So, to the person
Okay.
behind Sanus. So, I believe it came up briefly that Sanus was originally created as an NPC, effectively, a sort of blank slate to just kind of be there, fill a role, and then move on to the next. But, question is, what was the first time Sanus came up? And kind of, if you're able to share the situation around Sanus that created her.
The first time she came up, she is, at that point, that was Sanus Hearts. Sanus Hearts was the original Sanus. Back before, when she was originally brought up, she didn't have a last name, she was just known as Sanus. This is gonna go into a little bit of a lot of, this might be a big topic to talk on.
Oh, I'm fine to sit here as long as possible. I imagine Sarah's here to be dragged along for a while as well, but if we need to call it at any point, feel free to butt in and let us know.
First start out, my server where Sanus originates from comes from, we originally based it off of Ruby. It was a Ruby roleplay server initially. It's no longer that now. Sanus, her name is actually one of the continents. Which, that stems from, she got her name because her mother was named Remnant. Which, Remnant is one of the planets, is the actual planet on Ruby. Sanus, it goes a bit, so Sanus came around because Remnant's sister, Kamakura, she was originally, her design was based off of Shin Godzilla. So much so, she actually took on the kaiju form of Shin Godzilla. And she was about to destroy the school that all these people took place in. It was a big event that I had going on, and the players were able to solve it and stop it. And she became her humanoid form. After some time, eventually, more of more of Kamakura's family started showing up, including Sanus. Sanus was the middle child at that time. She had an older sister named Solitas and a younger sister named Animus. This is before Manny was born. This is before she was created at all. Sanus was her first time showing up in the roleplay. She read books a lot, and looking back on it, is a really bad plot, but she broke into the forbidden section library of the school. And she read a bunch of books, and she brought it to people, they were part of the student council, She brought it to them specifically to give them some help with a story that was going on. But instead of taking that help, they got her banned from the school grounds
Aye.
by going to. At the time, there were 4 different leaders of the school. They went to one that wasn't me, told them about it, and that person said, "All right, they're banned from the grounds," rather than actually discussing anything or doing anything.
Wow.
Um, which led to a bunch of drama. Uh, and then eventually, she was allowed back. Due to some finagling I had to do. That's actually, she became Santa's Hearts because my character at the time basically gave them a place to live, and she referred to that leader character as a father figure.
Okay.
But that's really how Santa's first came about. Was some drama and some stuff I had to deal with, but then there were a lot more fun interactions afterwards.
I feel like it's a little bit odd of like, so fix it up if I'm wrong, but it sounded like one of the 4 leaders of school goes to help out with something that's, a little bit forbidden. And instead of being like, wow, that's helpful, they went, wow, that's forbidden. And that's just caused a mess from there.
It was they went to the players that were part of the student council, and then
Uh-huh.
they went to one of the leaders who was an NPC, and they
Ah,
said they didn't even really do it. Like they just said, "Yep, they're banned," and that was it.
wow. That's... I could understand there being consequences because it was forbidden, and this is why it was forbidden. But consequences of, well, that's against the rules, bye-bye, and not playing into, like, the forbidden stuff is, there's certainly...
She at the time was supposed to be mentally around 13.
Ah.
So she was not. She was young and she was reckless in that
So,
regards.
not the best choice for a totally responsible person to pick up something from a library.
Yes.
I see. Well, at the very least, because of all that, we got the Sanus we do today. Even if it was a whole mess, huh?
Santa's Hearts actually, personality-wise, is different from Santa's Sangria.
Mm-hmm.
Santa's Hearts is a bit more reckless with stuff, whereas Santa's Sangria is a little bit more. She tries her best to be as careful as possible.
Yep, and careful as possible often includes wrangling outside forces to behave as well.
Correct.
I'm, in character a little bit more than familiar with, huh? Yeah. So, it makes sense that, as the character over different iterations and different instances would develop different traits, especially if they both exist and are, in some sense, aware of each other. So, yeah. Be that as it may, even if that's Sanus Hearts from the first appearance, thanks to, their appearance and the events that Sanus has gone through over the time, we have the current Sanus, who is just here and being an absolutely wonderful person and a treat to everybody who seems to get to know her, huh?
I try.
Well, I think you succeed in that capacity then, huh? Let's see. The next question I had coming up is one that, kind of comes off as a oddity to some people who probably are, into RP but don't really understand role-playing as in-depth. Because I know a few people have had a similar reaction to me where it's like, wait, you're a professional role player? where does that, how does that even come into play? How does one become a professional role player, or what leads to that? Those are the
um,
thoughts.
okay. It's not as hard to think if you look at it through definition.
Mm-hmm.
By definition of professional, it's usually someone who's paid to do a specific task. Um, that's really about it. I guess in a sense, I'm not a professional role player because they're not paying me to role play. They're
Ah,
paying me to run the server and to create the world and mechanics and stuff and support them. Um, but it's easier for me to just say I'm a professional role player because that's what I run the server for, is to role play.
that makes sense. I know my first gut reaction was, you know, how does somebody get paid to be role player in particular to that? But knowing that you're running, a lot of the details behind the scenes and making sure things are running properly, that puts a little bit more together in my brain on that. All
Yeah,
right.
it's just an easier thing to say. I role play professionally.
Although at the same time, finding someone to pay you to put together a world and a server and all that for them is definitely that's still a daunting task of, wait, you can do that type of reaction for a lot of people, I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, and you can leave out as many details or refuse to answer if you want, but how did it lead to you meeting an individual that actually would pay you for something like that versus, like, did you go out and this is the internet's job listings and this looks like something I want to do, or did somebody find you and go, hey, you do really good at this? What type of
Uh,
thing? Yeah.
it's okay. As I said earlier, there was originally four of us. We
Mm-hmm.
said at the time we really want to do Ruby roleplay because we were into Ruby at the time. It was before all the crazy Rooster Teeth stuff started happening.
Yep.
Um, so four friends. Uh, we created mechanics. We worked and made a bunch of stuff, and we created a server, and we invited people. Um, it helped that two of these friends at the time were admins on one of the biggest Ruby Facebook groups. So
Ah.
they started advertising, and people started to come, and they really enjoyed it. Um, I The only reason why I'm getting paid is because people like playing characters,
Yep.
but it's impossible to let an infinite amount of characters come out, or it just gets overwhelming for the team because we have to help create mechanics for every person's individual special ability,
Mm-hmm.
their crux, or at the time their semblance. Uh, so I opened up a Patreon, and it's for every $10, you can have an extra character slot. You start with two, and for every 10, you get an extra character slot. Because it's low enough that people would be willing, but not high enough that people would go, this is way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and sometimes again, it's a Patreon thing, so some months I get for $600, and then some months I get like $64. It really depends on how busy the server is and stuff like that.
Yep. Makes sense.
It makes sense though, because like it's a payment for convenience of somebody being able to have an extra character to it rather than, and it's the load. It's like, it's like you're paying for mental serval, the brain capacity to do extra characters to have to deal with the complexity of it. It's almost like paying for, like it's effectively like anywhere else. You pay for extra slots to use for, storage for running characters, for having that ability to use more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense out of it than my brain's, first imaginings the shadowy giant suited figure in a back room that just turns around in their chair and goes, You will run my server."
Yes, pets the cat or whatever, just in there like in the corner.
Pets the cat ominously.
Yeah.
Yes, you are running it well. Here is your currency.
Yeah. Like June said, buying slots in an MMO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You get
it's
the
a convenient
courtesy slot.
service.
Yeah, you get like one or two courtesy slots, and then you get you pay for the others.
Mm-hmm. All right, that makes a lot more sense to me now than it did before, where it's like, I understand that you do this, and I understand you get paid for it. I don't understand where the money's coming from, and who's, facilitating it. And it's like, my brain's still picturing that big back room, questionable, the Godfather will see you now type of situation, even though it's got an explanation now. So, alright. That sums up my questions as far as the specific out-of-character questions, too. Those are the two big ones I wanted to bring up and tangent off of. So, unless either of you have a few last-minute plans, I want to move over to the last couple of questions. Anything on either of your minds? No?
No, I don't think so.
Alright, in that case, well, this is something that we didn't really prepare for because my brain forgot to. But there's a different set I sometimes use. And it's not the tiny set I talked about. So, Sanus, you recall some conversation about wanting to visit at planetary size at some point, maybe. Yeah?
Yes, I did.
Yes. So, there is the possibility of that going on. Due to technical difficulties, we may have to make sure we just have a little Earth cam to have Sarah on Earth still be visible. But given that Sanus is not the type to munch on anything, it's actually safe to leave a co-host on the planet, unlike some of the other times.
I can step aside.
You can step aside? Okay, well, in that case, thank you for hanging out as long as you did, and we'll take Sanus on a little tour of space while Sarah takes a little step aside. So,
Take care.
Yep. Thank you again,
Thank
Sarah,
you.
for all that, and get some good rest if you are wandering offset and all that as well. Or do what you.
I'm gonna go take the courtesy buffet. It's over here.
It's
really tasty.
That's a far better option than what Hamu did of steal all the toilet paper. By the way, the bathrooms may not be stocked. Hamu installed a virus on the network to reroute all the toilet paper too.
Really?
So, quite possibly.
Oh.
Yeah, quite possibly. We're trying to get it fixed, but hamster viruses are quite stubborn, So double check before you overstuff.
Will do. Take care.
All right, and now, as we travel along, let's see. Where did we...
I think before we go off planet, I should probably let these people who are on me down, because I'm pretty sure they might.
That's a very good idea. I was gonna bring that up, but I actually just forgot in the moment. So thank you for doing that, reminding me. And when you're ready, I believe we have a well, you probably aren't used to having too many energy drink cans at your particular scale, right?
You're right. I don't think I have.
Yeah. So let's see. It looks like Dooney's left, and goodbye, Dooney. Yep, make sure to stay safe on the planet. So, well, let's just activate...
I'll wave from you. I'll wave.
She waves. We'll activate the little lift down below the building down, and you should see in just a moment to your side one of the Big Squeak Inc. products floating a little high. So, drink big. It does exactly what you expect if you drink it, right? So, Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ready for space?
I'm ready.
And let's see if I'm in the correct position or if I'll slide across randomly. 3, 2, space. Oh, I am completely. Let me.
Oh.
Oh, and also. Let me scoot away to the side. Let me shimmy. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. There we go. Oh, we're just gonna patch that up. Nobody noticed. Nobody noticed that.
Oh no, did
Welcome.
my chest knock into the planet? Not again.
It's fine. Listen, I may have nibbled on the moon, and that's why there's a dent in that, but listen, there was totally not a dent in the planet. You're just imagining things. Welcome.
Hello, everyone down there.
Yep, down there on the planet. Welcome to space. Welcome to planetary scale. And this is where we'll wrap up the final 2 questions. Normally, I would, I'd encourage the guest to take a bite of the planet or something, but I don't
Here,
think
I'll do that. I'll do better.
You'll
I
do
won't
better.
kiss it. I won't eat one. I'll give it a kiss.
Well, people of Earth, be prepared.
Just
If you need me to shift the planet some for you, let me know. I'll give a gentle nudges. Oh, there she go.
Mwah.
There you go, people of Earth. One big kaiju kiss. Alright, and now for our final 2 questions of just wrapping things up. Question 1. Are there any major long-term goals for the future that you've got in mind related to streaming or related to Sanus?
This might actually make me a little emotional, so I hope you won't mind.
Oh no,
I kind of
Cavat.
talked about it a bit on my stream, but my biggest fear in life is to pass away. And I should say, I'm not sick, I'm not going to pass away, but my biggest fear in life is to pass away knowing that Sanus is going to disappear. She's been in my life for so long and has changed my life so much for the better. And I want to be able to share that with as many people as I can, so that even if I'm gone, even when I'm gone, she will still be somewhere in someone's mind somehow. Sanus is the best thing that's happened to me. So I guess you would say my long goal is I want to get big, not for money, not for fame, for myself. I want to get bigger specifically because I want people to feel and understand the same way about Sanus as I do.
You want Sanus to enter the collective memory and be someone everybody can talk about.
Yeah.
Just remember Sanus. Fair enough. That's certainly a very heartfelt goal you've got. One that very personal into yourself. I've heard a lot of people talk about, they want to push for partner on Twitch or this, that, or the other things, and a lot, more practical goals, but I think this is the most personal long-term goal we've had shared on the interview, so thank you. And as far as short-term, are there any immediate plans that you want to bring up or share? Anything that's like next week, maybe a month out at most, or something like that?
Honestly, I tend to just go with it. If I schedule collabs and stuff like that. So I think mine is more not things that are coming next week or are planned yet, but I do plan on collabing with people, like more with Dooney, clearly one with Saru. I do eventually want to do something with you.
Yeah, we got the golf with our fairy. Yep.
Golf with the fairy. I can't wait for that. That sounds like fun.
You just gotta make sure to check for Dooney on each of the golf balls before we take a swing, right?
Don't worry, she can sit on my head whenever we go.
Good.
I don't have any short-term plans other than just stream, do things with everyone, interact. I love making little art things that I can for others to enjoy. It makes me. I think I get happiest I get is in the mornings when I look at my Twitter and I see all the interactions that I've gotten on a piece of work that I've done.
I definitely understand that from mostly commissioning people for gifts because, heck, people happy, me happy. But doing a little bit of drawing as well, it's like, oh hey, people are actually, liking my shenanigans. It's is nice, isn't it?
It is. Yes, more collabs with me. I hear you down there, Dooney. Don't you worry.
She's using fairy dust to yell all the way out of planet. We may want to, check for some broken ears when we're back down, huh?
Yeah. I actually thought it was because of our big ears, but now that you say that, it's probably what's happening.
Like, the atmosphere kind of ends before the sound would get to us most of the time. So, fairy dust megaphone, a little bit of magic involved in that. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright. And as we're wrapping up, if you have any final thoughts to share, go ahead. But also, I realize I should have prefaced this earlier when I was introducing the bit. I like to have the guest target the raid for the interview. So if there's anybody currently online that you would love to send some love to from the interview, feel free to let me know, as well as picking a raid message.
Let me look at who's online. I know exactly who I want to raid.
You know exactly
he was in here
who you
earlier.
want to raid? Alright.
Yep.
In that case,
do you want
I'll
me to send
bring it
you
up.
the link?
Just send me their name in chat. I'll just yoink
Okay.
it from chat.
Discord chat or Twitch chat?
Just throw it in Twitch if that's convenient for you. I have the Twitch chat open and ready for the raid as well. Ah, Grim from earlier.
Yeah, gotta give some support to my Kaiju friends.
Fair enough, fair enough.
And some last statements. Thank you so much for having me on here and inviting me.
Of course, thank you for attending and hopefully having a good time.
Thank you all down there on Earth for showing up. This is my first interview I've ever done my entire life. I love each and every one of you, and I can't wait to see more of things from Saru and maybe hopefully more of you. I would love to see all of your bright and shiny faces.
Thank you all for stopping by and learning about the wonderful kaiju gal that is Sanus.
And in a raid message, let's go.
Oh, yep. Raid message. What shall we throw at Grim?
Showing some kaiju support.
Alright, showing some kaiju support. There we go. Anybody taking part in the raid message, feel free to copy paste that and send it along. And we will see you all later. Bye bye, people of Earth.